What's up, this world? It's your boy Tommy Mab. I just came in because I wanted to basically start off the conversation talking about Denver Nuggets being bounced and coming back to my initial narrative, right? Okay, and I'll pick up where I did my other video where I was talking about the understanding of the Europeans are taking over, and explain to you why that is not true, right? Again, when we're talking about players, individual players, I've always broken players down in a specific way. I said there are different types of players, and I compare players to pieces on the chessboard, right? You have your highest piece, which is your queen piece. That's the most versatile piece on the board, right? Can it can't do everything that every other piece does, but it can do everything that it can do a lot of things well, and you can strategize it to make up for what your weaknesses, right? Then you have the bishop and the rook, which are very, very they're specialists, right? It's like you have the bishop, who I would refer to like a rebounder or someone who can get to the basket, quick, athletic. And then you have the rook, who I would compare to the 3-point specialist, which is somebody that you kind of line up on the outside to try to help the other pieces line stuff up. And then you have your pawns, which are like the players which are developing. You don't know what they're going to be yet. But sometimes they become sacrificial pieces if you don't know how to use them right. But the point I'm trying to say is, if you look at it like that, there are queen players, there are knights, there are rooks, there are bishops. The knight is also a specialist, but he's an effective specialist. Meaning he's diverse in his movements because he's limited in comparison to the queen, but he's very, very unorthodox. And it depends on what you're playing, and the way you're playing, in which you can utilize what he does well. And I think those are like scorers. Like scorers to me are like knight players. This is the problem what I get into when we start this whole situation about who is better at developing players, the people who are in Europe or the people in America. And it's like, well, America is this, and they're creating this, and they're creating that. And I think there's a lot of truth to this cone baby thing when they say all these kids are just cone babies. They don't know how to play actual basketball. A lot of them are just cone babies, in the gym with a cone and a personal instructor teaching them how to do everything. And they're not learning to play a sophisticated game. They're not learning to play a game in which they play off of people. So, that's the downside, yes, because the downside to that is when you're doing well, you know what I mean? Then then that type of player is needed, right? If you can build the whole team around it. But if you can't build a whole team around that player, then that player is a liability. Meaning there's problems. Now you develop a player who is used to being a focal point. A guy like a Michael Porter Jr., Cam Thomas, these guys who are extremely talented scorers, but they can't do much else. So the liabilities on defense, they're not that big. They're not great rebounders. They're not great passers. They don't really understand the game that well. All they've ever had to do from the time they were a little kid is find a way to get their own shot off. That's it. That's the only thing they've had to do since they were little. Find a way to get your shot off. You've never learned to play off of other people. You've never learned to set other people up. You never learned to play create. You never learned to play defense. You never learned to rebound. LaMelo Ball is another person. Just get your shot off. Right? The difference is LaMelo Ball can pass a little bit, which he developed later in his career, but later in his high school career. But you can tell he grew up with Lonzo Ball being more the maestro who learns to play, and he kind of played off of him. And then once he was forced to play by himself, or he became the point guard, he learned to play more as a point guard. But I think for the most part, that wasn't his focus. His focus was always himself and playing a very unsophisticated game, which is predicated on getting a shot off. Players like that, you're gonna have a plethora of players who are great players if you build a team around them, right? Meaning set up players, a rebounder, a three-point shooter. You need the rooks and the bishops and the queens, definitely the queen, to make that night valuable, right? The queen player has to be there to save the night's ass, right? But once you lose the queen, the night is useless, right? Kobe without Shaq, useless, right? Kyrie without LeBron, not the same. Tatum without Brown, not the same. When you get these guys who are scorers, they are great as long as they are allowed to do what they do. They are not great once they lose that player that makes up for their inefficiencies, right? So, of course, I'm not making the argument that a person brought up in the AAU system is somehow naturally is that system is better than the Europeans. But the Europeans are the opposite, right? You look at a guy like Jokic, right? Last night, I mean, if this was LeBron, let's just call it a spade. If this was, they didn't even say LeBron. If this was an American-born player, who lost a series 4-2, almost got gentleman swept, and lost the last two games without them missing their top two scorers, that guy would be annihilated. But instead, who are we going to talk about this morning? Turn on your TVs. I'm making this at 7:30 in the morning, and I promise you this. This is not a situation where I know where I'm speaking after the fact. So I don't know when I'm uploading it, but I'm doing this at 7:30 in the morning. If I'm doing this at 7:30 in the morning, I guarantee you that none of the videos have come up yet. I guarantee you the focus will be on what's that guy named, the shooter guy who's a Knight also, what's his name, Jamal Murray. All the focus is gonna be on him. They're gonna slightly mention Jokic, and all the focus is gonna be on Jamal Murray. I can promise you that. Because this is the problem I have with the whole, the whole European player thing. They don't hold the Europeans to the same standard they hold the American players to. And I get annoyed by that. Right? You cannot, these guys get such a pass that the pass is so bad. Imagine if LeBron got the passes that a Luka gets, that a Jokic gets, that a Wemby gets. They either do good or they're ignored, right? So it's frustrating. So when you're sitting there and you're watching it, and all this talk, the Europeans, they know how to develop players, and they know how to develop. Giannis, great as long as he had players around him that were able to ask him what he didn't do well. Then their blueprint was out about it. Cut him off. Don't let him get to the bucket. Nobody's saying you're going to stop him completely, but you'll slow him down well enough to beat him. And people found that out. He is not. Don't give him ability to pass. Swarm him at double team and wait on him to get around and prevent and have somebody standing at the free throw line so that he can't get to the rack. If he can't get to the rack, he's forced to shoot, and he is not a good shooter. And sooner or later, it's going to get to a point where he's not going to be able to do anything. Jokic plays no defense. You know that. You know if you attack him, you know if you can get the ball inside, you can get the ball past Aaron Gordon. Jokic is no problem. Jokic is food. He can't stay in front of anybody. He can't guard without fouling. And all he can do is try to give you points. He's not going to give you 50 points on the offensive side. He like, oh, well, his game is predicated on passing and this, that. Yes, it is. But that he also can't score 50. He can score 50, but it's very, very rare because he is not fast enough to get the easy points that a LeBron could get, that a Anthony Edwards, or guys who are uber athletic can get about 12 points just off their athleticism alone. That's a non sequitur for there's no discussion with Jokic, right? I've never seen that type of situation where a guy like that, who they widely to this day is considered the best player in the game. He is widely considered the best player in the game over LeBron, over all these other people. LeBron can go and be up 3-2, almost sweep a team without his two top scorers. You lost your two top scorers. I mean, the team you're playing against lost their two top scorers. Their superstar and Anthony Edwards, and their top rook / specialist in Dante DiVincenzo. And I'm not saying that Dante DiVincenzo is not great. You know, I would say he is average at his athleticism. I say is a little above average. I'd say his defense is average. I would say his average to a little above average, and I would say his ability to get to the cup. Dante DiVincenzo does a lot. He just doesn't do a real queen. There are different types of queens. There's queens like a LeBron, who is a piece that is elite at everything. Right? And then there's a queen piece that is great at a lot of different things. So I would say that yes, I would say Dante DiVincenzo is talented at a multitude of things. I'm just saying that what he's known for is his 3-point shooting. That's the thing he adds the most to. I mean, that's what he brings to the table. Anthony Edwards is a queen player through and through, right? He's gone. You lose Dante DiVincenzo, who was their other top scorer, and you still lose. You don't. Not only do you lose, you don't even get to Game 7. You lose 4-2, lose 2 closeout games. It was tied 2-2 when Anthony Edwards got hurt, and Dante DiVincenzo got hurt. They got hurt early in the game, and the game was still close. So that makes no sense that you would ever think that LeBron wouldn't have got excoriated if he was considered the best player in the game, and they lost. They lost without the other team's top 2 scorers. Do you ever think there's a scenario where LeBron James would ever lose a 7-game series when the 2 top scorers on the other team are gone? They're trying to jump on LeBron now because the Lakers are up 3-2. We're up 3-0, and the Rockets, who are full of talented players, have lost the last 2 games, and his team is without their top 2 scorers, and they're attacking him now. just for not being able to close out a Rockets team at 41, 42 years old. It don't make no sense. But I guarantee you're going to have very little people who are going to talk about Jokic. Everybody going to be talking about Jamal Murray. Everybody going to be talking about the fact that Aaron Gordon went there. Nobody's going to be talking about the fact that you were there. You had your other top scorer. And y'all still couldn't beat a team that was lacking their two top stars. I said it over and over and over again. The most valuable piece on their team is Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon covers up for so much. He's their physicality. He's their anchor on defense. He's their athleticism. He's everything that they need him to be. Before, when they had MPJ, when Gordon would go down, they could substitute the defense for offense. They don't have MPJ anymore. They went and got another shooter to help Jokic, who was again in the MVP discussion this year. Right? He's in the MVP because of his numbers. Man just got bounced in the first round by a team lacking their first two stars. Yet we gonna sit up here and analyze and criticize LeBron for going to the finals, missing the playoffs 1 or 2 seasons out of 20, missing the conference finals. I mean, making the conference final in 75% of his seasons. And we don't criticize him. But Jokic is getting bounced constantly in the first and second round. Outside of that year they won the championship, which was a shitty year where it was down and everybody was injured. He won that championship. Other than that championship year, what has Jokic done to be considered the best player in the game? He is not. He's not the best player in the game. Everybody pointed out 1,000 times and it was seen as hating. And people were saying, Jokic is not the best player in the game. You cannot be the best player in the game and be the worst defender on the court. And that's the problem. Giannis, terrible defender. Jokic, terrible defender. The only one that is a true queen, a true clean piece is Wemby. Wemby is elite, but again, he's very injury prone. Right? You think about this. All these players, they have some glaring weakness. Remember Porzingis when everybody thought he was the first Wemby? Couldn't stay healthy. Now you here with the Spurs and they got this series in the bag and can't close out the Trailblazers because Wemby can't stay healthy. This is the problem with these guys. You can love these players. You can sit up there and say, but the idea that they're the best, that they're taking over the NBA is crazy. They're not taking over the NBA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a great player, but he is not the reason the Thunder are great. It's the plethora of American players around SGA that is why they're doing so well. The plethora of American players around him. I think he has one other Canadian guy, which is Dort, and everybody else is American. Unless you want to count Adams, who I don't even know if he's on the team anymore. But I don't know any other European player around him. Chad is American. Williams is American. All these guys who are pivotal to that team are American players. So I just find it odd that, like they're not taking over anything. And him winning one championship does not mean they're taking over. He's like, Giannis won it, Jokic won it. It's like, okay, that's 3. If you even want to count Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as being foreign, he's still Northern American. He's still on the continent of North. I guess not. It's kind of different, but whatever. The point I'm trying to say is he's in a different country, yes, but he's Americanized. Canada is very Americanized. So I don't even really count Canadians as being different because, like I said, they're a lot of them are just migrated Americans. So I mean, but you can call it what you want. The point is that I guess you can count Canada with Jamal Murray in there, but I don't really count them. When you're talking about true Europeans, I mean European because, again, Canada is not Europe. True Europeans, most of them don't play no defense. They can't. They have little to no athleticism, and they play a game that is predicated on pulling in double teams and passing out of it. Unless you're Luka, then you're just trying to shoot over 3 people. But other than that, that's what the predication is. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get you to come, swarm, and find the open man. I think that's not no European style because it was here well before that. Oh, that's the problem. These European players, they're smart players. Okay, if that's what you want to believe, knock yourself out. But I don't think it's true. You have Jokic, who's a smart player. Who else? Right? They're more sophisticated scorers. No, you have Luka, who's a sophisticated, great scorer. Who else? They know how to pass. Okay, you have Giannis, and Jokic. Wemby is not a great passer, though he can pass, but he's not a great one. And Luka is, to me, the idea that Luka is a great passer, I think is a lie. It's a myth. He is not a great passer. He does not understand defense as well. And when he passes it, he's literally just doing lobs for dunks. He's not doing what Jokic is doing. He's not doing what LeBron is doing. Giannis has a very, very, very straightforward game. He steps in, he gets into the lane, you swarm, he passes it to the 3-point line. That is not a great passer. That is just somebody who has been taught to condense the defense and then pass, which is not stupid, but But he's a willing passer, which is a plus. Him and Jokic, that's it. So this myth that the problem I have is European players are not all from one place. To say that and then just differentiate a Canadian from American, yet you want to say somebody from Greece, it's the same thing as somebody from Yugoslavia or somebody from Ukraine or Soviet Union or any of those places, Serbia. They're not the same countries. So to put them all as if they all develop their kids the same way is crazy. They don't. It's just insane to make that argument. And there are millions of Jokic's being made in America. The problem is they never get to the point where they can excel, because when you're a player with Jokic's skill set in America, it's hard for you to rise up because there are so many players. There are so many teams that are built around the player that is the most mature at a young age. So that player that would be a Jokic, if he learned to play in a system that allowed him to play that way, that player would probably become Jokic. But the reason why he can't become Jokic is because his coach is too busy telling him to stand under the goal and rebound and pass the ball to the LaMelo Balls and the Ja Morants and the Anthony Edwards and those guys of that ilk. So that guy who probably could have become a Jokic will never become a Jokic because he's been taught his role is to feed the star player, and he is not a star player. So a lot of these tall, gangly, uncoordinated guys, when they're younger, they are taught to be under the goal. You too big, you need to be under that. Why? Because it benefits the star player. So that player never learns to play basketball. They learn to play a position in basketball. And so, whereas in Europe, because the game is more spread out, and because the way that they choose to, play a wide open where the center can sometimes play on the shoulder or play at the top of the key, that creates an atmosphere where these players become more diverse. And that's the part of the European way of basketball that I like. But the problem with doing that also is you're putting players who in positions that they're not equipped to play. Right? Jokic should never be out on the wing, because if it's a quick transition, there's no way in the hell Jokic can stay with a guard. If that guard peels out after a miss, that's an easy layup because Jokic can't run with him. If Jokic shoots a three, he has to get back first. But he's not, because he's the slowest player on the field. So if he takes that three, the ball bounces out, they get the rebound and run, he can't stay on the point guard. So what does he do? He tries to run to the top of the key, right? Put his hands up and hope for the best. So you're trying to hide a guy that you're utilizing on offense on defense. Well, that makes it extremely easy for him to be covered. Right? He takes the shot, his man, it makes a short run. If you're Rudy Gobert and you're that slow, who's easier to keep up with? A guy who's shooting and so he's behind the play. So now I can run, I can get to your body easy because you're sitting there waiting to see if your shot is missing, then the ball is rebound. Now you already out of position. Now they're turning and running, and you can't run down the player anyway. And in the half-court offense, I can get any matchup I want, because at that point, you're going to be always out of position. You're either going to have to drop immediately, which makes you not a presence on the defensive glass, which means we're going to get way more second chance points, or you're trying to get inside, and then the minute you miss, because you're going to get doubled, now you're missing, and they're going to get to your body. You're not going to be able to get back to get the transition to play offense. So it's like, yes, it's great that these European players learn to play specific ways where the game is more wide open, but it's also detrimental to them in the sense that they never learn to play the positions they're supposed to play. America's the opposite. They're taught they play with mature players or players that their coach thinks is going to be all-stars from the time they're little. So they're looking for players with very specific skill sets. If you shoot the three, we're going to put you out there so you can accent and the star player can pass you the ball. If you are tall, we're going to put you under the rim so that you can grab the rebounds for the star player to play. If you are a good passer, we're gonna put you at top of the key so you can find ways to get the ball to the star player. Everything is predicated around the star player in America. So players learn to play specific position, but they don't become more diverse diverse within that position. Right? You get more of the guys who are just under the rim, tall, big, and grabbing rebounds, because that's what their coach is like. What are you doing out there? Get under the goal. We need you rebounding. We don't need you shooting threes. We got somebody who can do that. Whereas in Europe, you're not going to have as many great players. So therefore, it's predicated on finding a way to have a team-oriented attack, because your star players are not that good. Whereas in the NBA, when you have a guy like Anthony Edwards or somebody of that ilk, of course the first idea that's going to pop in somebody's head is to find a way to get them the ball. So I think that's the biggest issue with when you're playing with players like that, is that European players are great at being diverse and figuring out ways to utilize players that are on their team because they're resourceful. They need all those players. Whereas in America, it's the opposite of it. We know we have specific players. We have an abundance of talent. So we can sacrifice a player who might be more diverse and be able to and use them as if they are a specialist. Because we have a player that can do a multitude of things. We have several players that can do a multitude of things. We don't need you to do that. We need you to do this. And in that, and in that sense, I think that's where you run into the problems in the systems. Yes, AAU's culture is bad, but it's bad because of the coaching. They try to make it look like it's bad because of the players, but it's not. It's really bad because the coaches spend more time trying to create stars and trying to create stars that they can build their brand around and their sponsorships around, instead of trying to find players trying to develop players into better players. Whereas in Europe, they don't have the abundance of talent, especially in specific countries. So when they get a player that is good, when they get players, they try to turn every player into a great player. And they do that by utilizing more of a team-oriented game. Consequently, the players never learn to play their specific positions properly because they're too busy learning a little of this, little of this, little of this, little of this, little of this. So the thing that they're predisposed to be great at, because of the unicorn aspect of it, you know what I mean? A big guy that can shoot threes, take you off the dribble, pass. All these things are not common among big men, so you become a unicorn. But you also become a unicorn in the other way, because you're a soft big man who has never really had to bang to get his points. All he's ever had to do was shoot. Which, you drop them in the middle of a guy who's been a specialist at that from the time he's 14 or 15 years old. He's learned to bang. He's learned to bang and body in the post. That was his one job. That's been his one job for the last 10 years of his life. Now you bring in this guy, this soft little guy who's just been playing a finesse game for the last 12 years of his life. He's not going to be equipped to bang with that guy who's been banging and learning how to bang and learning how to do every dirty trick that he can think of, grabbing jerseys, grabbing your arms, stepping on your feet, all these things that you never had to really deal with. Now you got to deal with. That's the difference. That I think there's a benefit to both. But the problem that you have is that these people trying to think the modern game. There's no positions. No, there's always positions. Right? There are unique skill sets, body types that are unique for every position. They're ideal for every position. They're ideal for those positions because they make it easier to do those positions. It's easier to be a point guard. You're low. You can protect the ball, right? If you're not 6'6", if you're 6'8", now it's harder for you to dribble for a long time because your dribble is high. So you put a good defender on you. Your ball is coming up way up here every time. They have an opportunity to steal it almost every time. It's going to be way harder for you to run an offense unless you're playing with your back early, with your back to the defender, like LeBron does or Jokic does. You can't do what a Kyrie does when he's standing in front of you and dribbling with the ball, or Allen Iverson when they're dribbling with the ball out in front of them. They can do that because they can keep their dribble low. Chris Paul, these guys, they can keep the dribble low. But now you're bringing in all these guys who are 6'6" and above and putting them at point guard because they're learning to play, they're learning to dribble and stuff like Kevin Durant. But these guys have extremely long arms. It's arms, so it's different. They can get low because they have these long arms, but not every player who's like that can do that. A Wemby can do that. A KD can do that. Chet can do that. Guys like that. But you can't grab every 7-footer and think that these guys who have raptor arms and think they're going to be able to dribble like Kevin Durant. They can't. So you need to utilize that player and make sure he knows how to do the things he's uniquely blessed to be able to do, which is use his size to make sure that he's winning these games and being effective at the position he's supposed to be effective at. It's not his job to go out there and play point guard. It's not his job to go out there and try to dribble and run an offense. He's not going to run the offense. He doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing. So he's going to be uniquely. That's his position. Let him stay out there on the court. When you have a short guy who can dribble, let him dribble. Don't have him up there banging with 7-footers. That's not his job. You have a guy who has long arms and quick-footed. Let him anchor the defense. He doesn't have to be LeBron. He doesn't have to be. His job is to anchor the defense. There are specialists. There are guys who make money for rebounding, playing defense, passing the ball, shooting the ball. They're specialists. You don't want to get to the point where you're not utilizing specialists, but you also don't want to get to the point where everybody is a diverse player that is average at a bunch of things, but not above average at anything. And I think that's the problem you run into. You have a whole bunch of players that are above average at this, above average at that, and below average at everything else. And nobody's elite anymore at anything. They're just all above average. And I think that's a problem both in Europe and here, because in Europe that's the norm. And in America, you have guys who are elite at one thing and never learn to at least be decent or average at other things. So anyways, am I tripping? Let me know what y'all think. If you're not subscribed, what we doing, subscribe, comment, thumbs it up if you like it. And all right, y'all, peace.